What good looks like to us is somebody that can act as a trusted partner. And so if their practices are at a point where they can sit at the table, with the business, with the executive teams, and be treated not as, go install that printer for me, but we have this business problem and we need help from you to solve that.
Exponential IT is here. It involves embracing and innovating with exponential technologies like generative AI and recognizing that yesterday's status quo will not carry you into tomorrow. It's changed the way leaders discuss how their organization should operate, the value they want to deliver, and the roles technologies play. Product leaders must now become organizational leaders who unlock the many business opportunities the technologies bring and manage the risks and costs that come with them. Still, many product leaders are ill-equipped and too inexperienced to meet the expectation and gain value from the rapid and disruptive changes happening around them. Joining me today is Ari Glazel, Practice Lead of Applications and Data Research, to walk us through the framework and the practical steps to introduce and embrace this exponential IT into product teams. Ari, thanks for joining me today.
Great to be here.
And maybe just, starting with the obvious, why now? Why does this matter? Why do product teams need to be thinking about the technology landscapes in a way they haven't before?
Well, the reason they have to start thinking about this now is quite simply, things are accelerating so fast. Before, organizations had a way of working for the past 20, 30 years in terms of how they delivered products, how they delivered solutions. And you could criticize and say, well, maybe it was a little slow, maybe it was a little clunky, but they were able to get by. What we're asserting is going forward into this exponential IT world where where AI and other intelligent technologies are changing the landscape. I mean, you're not just going to fall behind, you're going to fall away.
Right.
So it's critical that organizations get a handle on their product delivery functions in order to be able to deliver in this new exponential IT world.
We have to have an adaptable ecosystem. We need to have continuous modernization. An overarching, insight here into our research, which is that, the approach we've got for product teams, it may work for today, but it certainly doesn't work for tomorrow. And as we think about tomorrow, there's a few kind of key dimensions of product teams that we're looking at. We're looking at the ability to intelligently collaborate together. We're looking at securely architecting our solutions. We have to have an adaptable ecosystem. We need to have continuous modernization. And finally, we have to have fluid partnerships. Let's start teasing those apart and talking about, what each of those mean, because they're each individually so rich with meaning. So, Ari, can you walk me through that?
What I'll start off by saying is you're no longer worrying about that little widget that you're compiling the code and you're just putting it onto people's desktops. In this future that we're talking about, applications isn't just this one thing. It is a set of things that are coming together. Right, use the term multi-source ecosystems. This is where you don't just have your product or your system, for example, that manages collaboration in your organization could be made up of tens and hundreds of platforms across multiple geographical areas with a diverse set of people with different skills, contributing to that. No longer it's about this one little thing with three people in a room, and three people in a room working at that. That's one example. In terms of intelligent collaboration, intelligent is the key word there. Collaboration, people can talk to people, but the problem that we have is the benefit of this information age that we live in is information is available everywhere and people can talk to whoever they want. The disadvantage is people can talk to whoever they want. And so the problem is that how do we optimize that communication and how do we optimize that collaboration in a way that is effective for you to deliver properly. In terms of being securely architected, we've been talking about this for a long time around the importance of good architecture and security. And it becomes even more important in this world where response times are going to be so rapid and changes are being so rapid that you need to think about that architecture from the start. You need to think about security from the start and apply new and different approaches to that, where in a lot of older product approaches, you would find that architecture would kick in every so often. Security would maybe give a go or no go. It's like that's not acceptable in this new world where they are part of the product, really a part of that core product life cycle, and they're not just adjuncts to it after the fact. In regard to an adaptable ecosystem, this is where you're not just focused on the technology anymore, right? What you don't want to, what won't be acceptable anymore is that the platform can't do it. Okay, well, if the platform can't do it, well, there's another one out there that can.
Right.
So you want to set up your products and your systems so that you can move from platform to platform, be more composable, bring in other platforms, bring in other systems, bring in other approaches, other patterns, so that you are able to move as your requirements change, and they will change rapidly. With regard to continuous modernization, this is where, the day after you release anything, it's already out of date. And in an exponential IT future, that will come even quicker than simply a moment. And so it's very important that you have capabilities in place where changes, modifications, improvements isn't a one-off event.
Sure.
It just is. It's just the way that you operate. And so when we look at the future for your practices, that it's very important that all of that is kept in mind. With regard to fluid partnerships, this is where there's no longer that set of people in the corner that are doing this activity, and this other set of people that you need to talk to, and you will be talking to them for the next 5 or 10 years. That could change rapidly and very often, and so the processes that you have in place, the governance you have in place, the activities you have in place need to keep in mind that not only will your technologies change, but your people, but the people involved will change. The groups and structures will change, and they will change as the needs of the organization changes. And again, that is a constant, not an event.
One of the insights that came out of this, Ari, is all about product agnostic delivery teams. What does that mean to you, and why is that so important in this new world?
It's about not being attached to that single widget. It's about not being attached to that single application. We want to talk about one of the taglines that came up when we were talking in live the previous year around exponential IT and applications is we're not talking about apps, we're talking about capabilities. Mm-hmm. And so this is very, very important here that you'll have a set of teams in place there to deliver on the needs of the organization through delivery of certain capabilities and enabling certain capabilities in the organization. That could be done with a Microsoft Office product today. Mm-hmm. That could be done with something completely different tomorrow. It's not that important. At least on some level, it is important to the technical teams, but from a planning and strategy point of view, you should not be so attached to the technology. You need to be attached to the capability that is helping you solve a specific business problem.
So maybe put another way, modular is good, right? The ability to kind of rip and replace any component at any time is like the goal.
Right, you better not have attachment issues in this industry.
Yeah, well said. The next insight I wanted to talk about is all about having a principle-based approach to your product portfolio and how we look at the product portfolio. Can you maybe share a little bit more about what we mean by that?
We're not building technology for technology's sake, right? We're building it to solve specific important problems to the business. If you're doing anything that's really critical, you need to make sure that everybody is singing from the same songbook, not just in terms of technique and tactic, but in terms of how they operate, how they work with each other, what do they consider good, what do they consider bad. And so laying out those foundational principles for what's important to your product teams is critical. And this is where it's very important that you have pretty significant alignment around those principles. And I should say even the words not mentioned is values. I would say that that's important. I would use that probably in the similar breath, where the values and principles of that product team is critically important, and they should be very much aligned. And so we've spent some meaningful time in the research talking about that, because again, it's not about technology. It's about making. It's about people and how they can be brought together in order to deliver important things to the organization.
I'm joined today by this wonderful panel here to talk to us about exponential IT product practices. Joining me today, we've got practice lead Ari Glazel, research director Andrew Kamsun, and we've got principal research director Vince Mirabelli. Welcome, everyone. So happy to have you. Maybe first off, and I ask this very conscious of the fact that I'm talking to the product team, but implicit in this research is this kind of notion that the product model is the right model, among many different models. To what degree does that have to be true for this to make sense? And, I chuckle because, you describe in your research products as being the lifeblood of the organization. And I talk to the services team and they tell me, no, services are the lifeblood of the organization. How do we need to be thinking about, the role of products in the organization, and what's the right model, and when is the right time for products versus another model? Ari, maybe I'll start with you.
So I kind of chuckle at that question a little bit. Is products or services important? I would say yes, is my answer to that question. You look at products and products and services are not these things that are constantly in contention with each other, right? Both products and services, you have an owner that is accountable for the delivery of value. There is a roadmap that guides its development. You think of the products and services as things that are long living, not something that ends when a project ends. And as well, you could think of, there are cases where there are services out there that are created from a combination of products and processes being brought together. There are cases where some products are a combination of different services. And so some of it depends on your organization, your history, your pedigree here, but at its core, there's no incompatibility between products and services. Are products important? Yes. Are services important? Yes. By no means when we say products are important, then nothing else is important. That's just not the case.
I tend to agree with that. I mean, products, our services, our processes, they're the same, but they're different. Mm-hmm. And so in my mind, and I'm opening myself up potentially to backlash here, but in my mind, like a product is something tangible, physical. A service is more of an experiential, which, to Ari's point, could include a singular or multiple products. But in the end, the principles that are used to develop, nurture, innovate, and grow those products, services, processes, they are similar, if not the same.
The problem with the tangibility argument very quickly is, well, when we talk about digital products, right, are they tangible? I can't hold it in my hand. I can put it in my bag and take it home with me at the end of the day. Yeah. But it is still something critical to the organization.
You can point to it.
I could. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Well played, sir. Well played. Yeah. I concede you're right. Digital products you're 100% right.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems that we do see here is how this is actually interpreted among the marketplace, among our stakeholders. And it's very hard for them to disconnect between product and services. So while the capabilities are the same to roadmap them, to deliver them, to support them, it does not necessarily mean that our conversations, our communications with them is going to be the same as well. So if we talk to any other customers that says, hey, is Uber a product or is Uber a service? Right? Their interpretation may kind of influence in terms of how we would want to attack that type of problem.
Right. One of the findings that you've shared here is that, plan, build, run isn't going to cut it anymore in this world. Waterfall isn't going to cut it anymore in this world. And so do we have to move to this model now? Like, do we have any other choice? And what, where are the kind of, compatibilities here, I guess, with how we structure our world?
I think one of the things that we're seeing in the industry right now, it's very difficult to talk about solution delivery without talking about Agile. And there are a lot of reports out there that a bulk of the organizations are already striving towards it. And it's very hard to discount the fact that a lot of the technologies that we're putting into place right now makes the most value of actually having an Agile process there. And not just that, but there's compounding by the fact that stakeholders, customers are changing their needs every single day, every single minute, right? And that does not kind of support the waterfall practices, or we won't be able to see the benefit of the waterfall practice if that environment of continuous change is always there.
In this future, waterfall is dead.
Right.
We're asserting even, in our other solution delivery research, like waterfall is effectively dead.
Right.
and that you're going to move to some model, whether it is a complete product-centric model, whether it's a hybrid model. We're not stating this is the perfect model for you, but we don't see a future where your operating model won't change in some way.
Right.
That just won't be a thing.
Right. And so, maybe if I can frame it this way, we need to live in an agile world, whether it's a capital A agile or small a agile. Agility is now the name of the game. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think waterfall is dead and our stakeholders' expectations have killed it.
Right.
We no longer have the luxury of going to our stakeholders and saying, okay, we're going to work on this thing, this widget for you, gather your requirements, figure it out, build out a project plan, see you in 2 years when we deliver it to you. That is gone. And so the fact that to Andrew's point, our stakeholder expectations have changed, and that is applicable whether we're talking about external customers or we're talking about our internal staff, internal organization. Our needs have changed, and so we need to change how we deliver value to those stakeholder groups so that we can continue to have happy stakeholders.
Right.
And I would like to push on that even further, because whenever people think about small a agile, it does not entail or imply business and IT collaboration. And that's kind of the heart of all this. Because if we're not able to deliver valuable products, it's not going to be used no matter how much effort we want to put into it.
Right.
We're just going right back to the whole field of dreams type of question. If you build it, will they come?
Right.
And even if we build it incredibly fast, does not necessarily mean it's going to be delivered, and that does not necessarily mean it's going to be accepted by them. So I personally believe that you got to have big A agile that enforces the importance of good customer as well as stakeholder collaboration.
On that note, we've kind of gone out there and said anything that restricts change, that restricts agility is bad, right? We need to be that's almost our North Star, right? That this ability to be adaptive and reactive. And so when we look at that, in that lens, how important is tools and technology that gets us there versus, processes and mindset and culture? Where are you going to get the most bang for your buck as you try and maximize your agility?
I'll go first and say technology alone isn't going to get you there. Without the mindset, without the behaviors, without the tacit capabilities of people, as well as that acceptance and adoption of any changes that you introduce, technology is not the silver bullet. So I think you need the human element to enable the technology.
I think one of the challenges here is what aspect of the human element is important here. We see that, especially with AI, that resources or human resources are very fearful that their jobs are going to be replaced. And that kind of brings home when we look at exponential technologies where our skills are going to be outdated. Our technologies, our tools are going to be outdated. So does that mean that we should, as an organization, double down and invest in terms of these skills and technologies? That's going to be a very difficult question to ask among stakeholders, because that just means that even aspects of humans and technologies can be disposable on that side.
So I'm going to answer the question differently. We answer it in our research in the first phase. We don't talk about technologies there. We talk about goals, objectives, practices, practices and values that we want our product teams to have. It starts with that. It doesn't start with technology.
Right.
I should be able to bring any technology I want to bear. If I have the right team in place, with the right practices in place, and the right values, and the values and goal, and with goals that are aligned to what the organization needs, that's where you need to start. And so, when you're talking about, when you start to introduce the question, talking about, going fast and not having anything to hold you back. I mean, the only thing that should be, giving you pause is, am I serving the organization effectively? Am I delivering what I've been mandated to deliver? Yes or no? If not, you better go do something else.
Where does tech stack come into place? Because we've said now, don't start with tech. Tech is not going to get you there. But I mean, my sense, we can't ignore it either, right? To me, it's kind of I'll call it necessary but not sufficient. When does it come into play, and when should you be assessing it as this is not good enough, and where do you go from there?
So I would say it's what follows that human element that we were talking about earlier. So once we've defined our goals and our objectives and we get the people and the team on board, now I need to concern myself with technology. So think of technology not as the catalyst, but it's the enabler of what we creatively can think of as solutions. And so technology makes it happen, but we still need the people to enable the technology to make it happen.
So there's even multiple layers to that. It's not just about technology as this thing, and I'm going to pick this tool and it's going to solve my problem. Right? You're going to need some capabilities.
Right.
From to help you accomplish your goals. When we look at it from an exponential IT product perspective, we talk about the concept of multi-source ecosystems. We talk about that kind of fluidity, being able to move platforms because it's the right thing to do, right? You don't want to be limited to say, well, such and such platform doesn't do it, so we can't do that.
Right.
That's not an acceptable answer. So what comes into that planning, that planning up front is, what are the capabilities that I need from my technology? What do I need my technology to serve? Selecting the tool to solve that problem, you're going to do that, but it's a little further down the line than people may think. Someone's going to have to care about it, for sure. What we're saying is that's not necessarily at the point that you think. And in an exponential IT world, with the commoditization of certain kinds of technology, with the commoditization of certain aspects of AI, those implementation details are being pushed further and further down, down the stack. I'll say down your thought stack a little bit, right? So that you can focus on the more critical questions and answers.
Right. I want to go back to something Andrew mentioned earlier, which is the role of AI or machine learning in the product practice. And I look at that, both through the lens of, is this something that we need to start, hiring or upskilling, skills for, or is it something that can actually be replacing something people is doing, wholesale? And I know it's a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation, but what do we see that role evolving into?
Yeah, it's very hard to escape the fact that AI is going to be an integral part of solution delivery. We see a number of tools out there that are already bringing in that capability within their product, whether it's already in there now or will be in the future. So it's no escaping that type of reality. The question is how mature is that technology to make that fear actually a reality? We're not quite there yet. So that's kind of why whenever we actually talk about where does AI fit within the product team, they're more so about an augmentation. They're partners in terms of how they actually work together, where the humans are still being those collaborators. They're still the integrators. They're still the builders. But AI does present a very interesting perspective into the role of a product team, where they can be the content creator because we have generative AI making content. They can transform 1 or 2 line sentences into a nice, pretty user interface design, or they can act as a paired programmer or a tester where they can actually scan code or provide a little bit of testing capabilities within our team. So just to kind of answer your question, as of right now, we do not believe that product teams or human product teams will be replaced by AI, but they're more so an augmentation into that team.
So the impact of that is a little bit different than I think the way my colleague's expressing it here. So AI will not replace imagination in the near future. One of the far out horizons when we talk about exponentially from a product perspective is we simply say creators, not coders, right? AI will be able to build a perfectly sufficient socket library to let my applications communicate with each other, right? There are certain things that AI will do well, and they will code certain things and want them to do that. AI will not replace creativity. So we want people involved in the creation, the imagination, and those things that touch people, those things that impact people's lives. That's where we see the human element still playing an important part there. And Andrew has a very elegant way of talking about the partnership and how you're bringing together. You have AI on one side doing certain things very well, and you have people doing certain things very well, and they come together. And then there's a set of use cases where they work well together. So definitely, what we see in the future is that they are going to work together, but really a dividing line is really imagination and creativity is still with the what I would say with the human element.
I'll actually add to that. So it's creativity, innovation, critical thinking, ethical decision making. Those are things that I think AI today struggles with, generative and otherwise. And so, that's why people remain important. So yes, the role of the product team may change as a result of AI and other exponential technologies, but those are not going away anytime soon.
So what are some of those implications then of the skills needed on the product team? I guess in two ways. One, in terms of their ability to understand and properly leverage AI tools. Is that something that you need to have a unique role for, or upskill these team members for, or is that easy enough that it's just going to happen organically? And then how do we see the changing nature of these teams, right? Do they, is it too utopian to just say they're creatives, they're creators, versus, and I hate to say it, but that's not always, what we hired for initially on these teams, right? We hired people who could get things done, could understand, the way our systems operate. How do we get from here to there?
Yeah, so as part of this research, we did try to capture the fact that this is not just about solution delivery. It is a core component of that, but it's also really about building up a relationship. Because like we talked about earlier, there's no point in building anything if no one's going to be using it. And we can't confirm that what we're actually building are something that people want without actually talking with them. So we definitely do need to make sure that in addition to making sure that we have a good, efficient solution delivery process, that we are also building in the necessary relationship management practices into that practice. But just to answer your question here, it's very difficult to not think about AI, and the elements that Vince has just mentioned is very starkly different from actually how we traditionally do development. Because have we had to think about ethics before? Do we have to think about where our data is going into the AI models to help train them? Are we even conscious of the fact that we're putting intellectual property within a possible free-to-use generative AI tool? So there's a lot of things that, as traditional developers, they may not have an intuition for, but it is something that needs to be upskilled and trained. Will it require a new different role? I'm not quite sure about that.
Yeah, I don't picture a world where there's a separate role. I think if we're not already there, I think we're definitely approaching a time in history where generative AI skills are going to be table stakes.
Right.
You just need to be comfortable with various tools, with the technology, because it's going to become so pervasive in the work that we do. And so, I don't see it as a separate role, but I do see it becoming a part of everybody's role.
I'm going to give you an analogy, right? It doesn't 100% perfectly align, but pretty close, right? We go back to the time when mobile was this new fancy thing in development teams, right? You had very specific groups that focused on mobile, and it was a special thing that people wrote code for and did. You look at product teams these days, that doesn't really exist, right?
Yeah.
A desktop is a special case form factor, right? Mobile just is. And so we see a similar pattern. Obviously, there are nuances and differences. We see that similar pattern happen eventually with AI. It's not going to be some super special thing. It just is the thing that's there.
Is there any risk in your minds that, organizational leaders say that I don't need a product team at all, that the entire product team can be replaced by AI because I am the creative one. I know what I want, and AI will, create it for me?
Good luck.
I mean, there are capabilities, of course, that will be commoditized on the product teams, and we're pretty open about that.
Yeah.
It's not like everything's going to go away, but there is a lot of work and coordination beyond writing the code and managing the requirements that go into delivering something to the organization. Right? Delivery isn't me about double clicking the installer on my desktop. It's about a lot of coordination, a lot of negotiation, working with stakeholders, working with regulatory bodies. There's a lot of work that goes into that simply throwing the product team away. there will be many capabilities that are just not going to be fulfilled. They're just not going to be filled anymore if you throw away the entire product team. And we do, in our research, in the research, we do call out in terms of the, even the current state assessment and how the playbook is laid out. I mean, there's a lot of capabilities there that are really tough to replace by AI. And we just don't see it, at least in the near future, where that's something that is going to happen.
I believe, and I agree with you, Ari. I think any organization that makes that decision to that they don't need a product team because they are creative, one of two things will happen. Either they will get so bogged down in that minutia of stakeholder management and requirements management that they'll bring back product teams, or they will quickly realize how important their product teams were and then quickly rehire their product team. So both end in the same destination. It's just how quickly they get there. And I think the good organizations will recognize the value that product management and that discipline brings and try to leverage it and not think that it can be replaced or removed.
Gentlemen, thank you for your insights today and for joining me.
Thank you.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.
Ari, I'd love to hear a little bit about the methodology here that gets you to this kind of modern product practice. What does that look like? What are the different phases?
What's very important is that we start with is articulating where you want to go, right? What are your product practice goals? It's easy to come up with a great piece of technology. It's easy to say that I'm going to do this great thing, but how do you know if you're successful, right? You only know if you're successful based on some goals and objectives that you laid out. So when we're talking about product practice goals, there's a bit of a nuance there. You're not only talking about goals for the practice, but are those goals and objectives aligned with the goals and objectives of the broader organization? Because you're, everyone feels like they're the center of the universe, but that's not quite the case. We're all serving for a common purpose, and we need to make sure that there is proper alignment between what the product teams are looking to accomplish, and what the organization needs. And that changes rapidly as well, which ties into a lot of the practices and approaches that we talk about in the research. The next phase talks about product delivery capabilities, and so this follows everything from understanding and intake of requirements all the way through to delivery and all the pieces in between. And so what's important in this area, in this part of our research, is to help you write down and articulate, what capabilities does my team, currently have, and where do I need them to go? And again, to align them up to what we talked about in the previous phase around your goals and objectives, which is critically important. But we can't talk about product practices without talking about the state of your portfolio, because again, a product team, the purpose of a product team is to act on and build out and to evolve an overall product portfolio. Right? Is my product portfolio aligned with the goals and objectives of the organization? Am I going to be working? Am I going to be in a position where I'm going to run out of work to do in the next 3 months? Do I have everything in place so that I can continue to build onto the next thing and build onto the next thing after that? And assessing that product portfolio helps you ensure that do I have everything in place that I need that will properly serve the organization overall. On the last step here, and this is, if you've seen any of our other infotech research, one of the key things that we like to end with is a roadmap. It's one thing to say, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to do, but how do we go about getting there? And so being able to lay out an effective and actionable roadmap is critically important. And I would say in this research as well, it's even more important because of the what we call that exponential IT tidal wave that's coming. Right? What are the things that I need to do now to set myself up so that I'm not just a trusted operator, but I'm a trusted partner.
Right.
And this is helping you lay out the path to get you there.
As we take that path and we get to a roadmap, as you go through that methodology, what are some of the outputs, some of the artifacts that are created, along the way?
There are two key artifacts that we have. What we provide is an exponential IT product playbook, And we provide it in the form of a very easy to use template that can be filled in by the member by working through our research. This provides themselves and stakeholders with an understanding of the goals of the product team, how it aligns the organization's goals and objectives, details on their product practices, details on the state of their portfolio, and as well the overall roadmap going forward. And this is meant to be an aligning document to help you on your exponential IT journey. The second piece that we have, and it helps feed that playbook, is a current state assessment. Right? It's very hard when we talk to our members. Right? They have no idea what good is.
Right.
They have no idea where they are. Right? Some members think they're terrible, but we run them through a current state assessment, and actually you're pretty good. Sure. And so the current state assessment is a really critical and important tool that evaluates you on the number of the dimensions that we've talked about in order to help you know yourself where you are and where you need to do better. And we don't expect, nobody will be perfect. If you're perfect, then you filled it out wrong, to be honest.
Right.
Everybody has things that they can improve on, and this provides a very, very honest, an open way of going about getting that information.
What does good look like in this world?
What good looks like to us is somebody that can act as a trusted partner. And so if their practices are at a point where they can sit at the table, with the business, with the executive teams, and be treated not as, go install that printer for me, but we have this business problem and we need help from you to solve that. Now, taking a layer down from that, what that looks like is in a chaotic environment, when things come up out of the blue, when technical issues come up, when regulatory changes suddenly happen, that the team comes together and they are just able to execute and they're able to deliver. If they're able to do that after following the methodology, following the playbook, getting to the end of that roadmap, then I would say that that's a very strong indication of success.
When we talk about this upgrade or this update to your product practice here, I mean, what I'm hearing sounds like nothing short of kind of a transformational effort here in the way you approach things. How long does this take to do? And how much progress can you make in one kind of concentrated week of effort with a workshop?
That's a great question. If anyone ever tells you you can make a massive transformation in a week, that's someone's not being truthful to you there. Really, when you're talking about by the end of the workshop and by the end of a week, let's say working with Infotech, right, you will have a draft of a playbook. You will have some form of current state assessment done, perhaps on maybe on a specific product team. Again, talking about a common theme with Infotech, you pilot on something small, grow it to something larger. Right, but we will teach you enough how to fish so that you can go lay out that playbook for for other groups or for the broader organizations. And so when we're looking at what would it take, for example, for the entire organization to be able to go through that kind of transformation, we're looking in the order of years, not the order of weeks here. You're looking at least it's a 2 to 3 year journey based on some of the work we've done with our members in the past for doing these kinds of similar transformations. You're looking at it in an order of years. I mean, I've been with the company for 5 years, and I've just talked with a member last week from when I first started Infotech, undergoing a pretty significant product transformation, and they're still going to a degree, but again, they're seeing the success. Yeah. They're at the table where they should be, right? They're no longer, distrust is not there anymore.
Right.
So wonderful, wonderful successes there.
Ari, thanks so much for joining us today and for your insight.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Wonderful. And for those interested in learning more about building your exponential IT product practice, check out the full blueprint at infotech.com.